to be here with you guys. So one thing I wanted to say is I am a congressional candidate for CD2, as Bart just mentioned. I live down in Sea Isle City, so I'm from Cape May County. I do have a daughter here with me who's from Ocean County, and my other daughter's down in DC. So two of my 3 girls are here today, so I'm proud to have them with me. But one of the things I wanted to mention is when I appear someplace and speak as a congressional candidate, I usually dress up. I don't want you to think that John Fetterman is one of my favorite senators, but I don't want you to think I'm channeling him with the hoodie. I just had to wear it because it says the right thing.
Yeah.
So I love events like this. I mean, I've done so many of them over the last few years, especially in CD2, standing out on the street, on a corner, trying to get the attention of people driving by, getting them to blow their horns, making sure they know that this is an issue that deserves the attention of the American public. I've been to DC for marches where I've proudly carried my sign that says, "Get the elephant," or "Let's talk about the elephant in the womb."
Yes.
I have that in my car. I decided not to bring it in because it was not appropriate. So anyway, I have walked to the steps of the Supreme Court and shouted, and I've been so happy to be with like-minded people as I do this. And I'm happy to be with you today because I know that we are all like-minded and we all believe in the same thing. So thank you for being here. To prepare for today, which, I mean, it doesn't take much preparation, but to kind of get myself riled up a bit, I decided to listen while I was getting ready this morning to a YouTube video. The video was of a Senate hearing that Senator Murray had 2 days ago, I think. And I don't know who else listened to it, but if you haven't listened to it, I would strongly encourage that you do. She had women on her panel that told stories that will break your heart. And I'm hoping that when she gets the legislation that the Senate is trying to put together, when she gets that to the floor, and the people on her committee hear those stories, they will realize that this is an injustice to all women and that we need to take action to right the wrong that has been done. So I encourage you to go to YouTube and search for Senator Murray's hearing, and I believe it was on the 18th. Amazing. One of the women that was on her panel is an OBGYN from Texas. She's married. She said when she first wanted to start her family, she had some difficulty getting pregnant. Her first pregnancy, she was horrified to find out that it wasn't viable. So this is a number of years ago. And her doctors told her that the only course of action was an abortion because it was never going to, and I forget what the exact problem was, but it was never going to develop into a viable delivery. So she was able to go out and get that abortion because it was when Roe was still in place. She then, after that, I believe she had a miscarriage, but then she had 2 successful deliveries. So she has a little boy and a little girl. She then got pregnant again, and it was almost like, history repeating itself. She was told that the baby she was carrying was not developing a brain and would not live. If it survived to the point of delivery, it would die as soon as she held it. And she was dying. She was so upset because she wanted desperately to give her little boy and little girl a sibling. This happened after Dobbs. And like I said, or maybe I didn't, she lives in Texas. So she had to leave the state. Now her issues were, she has 2 little kids. She's an OBGYN herself. She was worried that if anybody knew what she was doing, that she could lose her license. Her husband's a doctor. He was helping her go out of state to have an abortion for a child that was going to die anyway, a non-viable fetus. It was heart-wrenching to listen to her tell her story. Now she has a 3rd child. She had another successful pregnancy, and at the hearing, that baby was sitting on her husband's lap. So she has a beautiful family, but she has a horrible story to tell. But she was on this panel that was testifying to the Senate. I encourage you to listen, because that's not the only horror story that was told. But the part that makes sense is listen to it so that you can share that kind of information with people who are against abortion but don't understand how devastating the abortion ban truly is. Like the first speaker, I forget, what's your name again? I'm sorry. Wendy. Like Wendy said, it's about control. It's about control over women, not by the men in here, but by men in power who want to keep women in their place. It has never been about being pro-life. No. So, I want to talk about, there's a couple different things that I want to talk about today. And actually, I should show my little swag that I brought. I just re-upped my membership in Planned Parenthood, so I got my 2024 card, and I got my Enough is Enough sticker. So anyway, what I want to talk about today, basically two things, because this is a women's march. It's not just an abortion march. And we have more issues than just the fact that we cannot get abortions when we need them. We have other issues. So I want to talk about some of them, and then I'll get back to the abortion issue. Now, one of the issues that matters to me is that in Congress, only 27% of our congressional reps are women. Women make up 51% of the population. Don't you think that if there were more women there, maybe we would have better protections for women? I think it's important that we get more women. You don't think so? I think women would fight harder for women's rights, and I know that I would. Maybe I'm making a blanket statement about other women, but I do believe that getting more women in Congress is important.
Yes.
Now, some of the issues that I wanted to talk about that are not necessarily abortion, but are, tangentially related. One is birth control, which was mentioned earlier. They want to limit that. They want to make sure that you can't even get birth control. So we need, at the federal level, to make sure that birth control is accessible, is affordable, or free, and that people have more control over their family planning. I want to see enforcement of the equal pay laws that we have on the books. It's hard to believe that in 2023, women who work full-time, year-round, make 83.7 cents on the dollar for every man. So
that's only white women.
I was going to get to that. I know, it's worse if you are a woman of color, but you are correct. It's for white women, and what that amounts to for white women is about a $10,000 a year. I guess this is an average. This is something that I found. $10,000 per year. You're making less just because of your gender. It's not right. We have laws on the book. We need to do something to get them, enforced. I'd like to see an elimination to the motherhood penalty. I'm not even sure how many people know what the motherhood penalty is, but it's the price that women pay for growing their families if they're in the workforce. And what the statistics have shown is that women who have children are less likely to get new roles and promotions. This is statistically, I'm not saying every employer does this, but there are statistics that show us that in general, women who have children are less likely to see advancements in their careers, which is sad. They are earning lower salaries, which we just talked about, and they're held, this is the part that really kills me, they're held quite often to a higher standard than fathers or women that are not mothers. So you're penalized, but then you're held to a higher standard. It's just insane. Paid family leave is another thing that I would like to see us get at the federal level.
I'm opening my big mouth again.
That's fine.
Part of the problem with the equal pay and the motherhood penalty is when you get to be my age, your pension is less.
Exactly.
Because not only have
Pension,
you been,
401k.
you're out of the workforce for a number of years raising your family, you come back in, you don't have the opportunities that a male who was your peer back before then. He's now hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead of you.
Yep.
And when you get to be my age, women generally outlive men, so we are cannot count on our husbands' pensions to support us when we get old. So.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm glad that you're interrupting me. You're adding more to the discussion, and that's always good.
I have a big mouth, I've worked in a male-dominated field most of my life, and I ain't shy.
And you're sitting there, for anybody who can't see, with an RGB collar on. So, she's representing one of the finest women that has ever walked the halls of the Supreme Court, although only a few have, but we miss RGB. I was saying when I came in, this would never have happened if she was still alive. But anyway, it's true, okay. I thought somebody was saying that's not true. Okay, so the next thing that I am a proponent of is universal pre-K, which will mostly help women, because when women, families welcome children into their houses, if they want to go back to work, they have to put their kids in daycare. And daycare, if you can even find a good one, is so expensive. Universal health care, or universal pre-K, would help so that people can put their children in a place that's safe and that is going to give them a jump start in their education. And the women can go back to work. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Without having to spend everything that they make on childcare. So we have that in most places in New Jersey. I know my grandchildren are beneficiaries of that. We don't have it in most places in the country, and I think we should. So affordable child care in general and affordable elder care goes with that, because it's almost always the woman who's taking care of her elderly parents. So if we're talking about issues that matter to women, that has to be among them. And the thing that we cannot forget is that in our country, in 2024, it's hard to believe that the Black mortality rate is 2 to 3 times more than it is for white women. And that is unacceptable. So when we talk about women's issues, that has to be among the most important, and it must be addressed. And the sad part is that most of the maternal deaths in the for women of color are preventable. They're not dying of something that nobody else knows about and can't be fixed.
And it's not race-related medical. It's
No.
care.
It's care. Yes, it's care related. They're not getting the same level of care, and that has to be fixed.
Well, some people seem to believe that
There's something biologically different. That's
Yes,
insane.
it's not.
That's insane. So.
Well, there are idiots out there.
No, I know that. Not in here, there's idiots, but out there, there's idiots. One of the ways that can be enhanced, or like we can start to deal with that, is by expanding postpartum care, especially for those on Medicaid, because Medicaid benefits right now for postpartum end in 60 days, and if you've ever had a child, you know that you're not back to normal in 60 days, that you're still dealing with all the raging hormones and the mental stress of having a newborn and all of the pressures that are on you. So postpartum care should go at least for a year, because they need to be able to check up on these women and make sure that they're doing okay, and if they're not, get them the help that they need. That goes for everybody, not just women of color, but they're affected by it much more than others. All right. So now I want to talk more specifically about abortion rights. I'm actually very disappointed in our government, especially the Democrats in our government. That's why I'd like to, go there and try to help them a bit. We should have known that this was coming. When the Dobbs decision came down a year and a half ago, it should not have been a surprise to anyone. For 50 years, there was lawsuit after lawsuit brought all the way up to the Supreme Court so that they could chip away at the rights that we had been granted. And if you go back to 2015 when Donald Trump was running, he came right out and said, I'm going to appoint judges to the Supreme Court that will overturn Roe v. Wade. It's insane. We should have listened to him then, just as we should be listening to him now and make sure he doesn't get anywhere near it. But he did exactly what he said he was going to do. I guess what we never knew was that he would get to appoint 3 judges. Oh well. So we find ourselves where we are, and I'm disappointed at that because I think that had we seen it coming, which our legislators should have, they probably could have passed some legislation that would have given us protections, but we are where we are. So what we need now is federal legislation that will grant women the right to terminate a pregnancy, and it has to be the woman's choice. No government official should be involved in that decision making. And that goes for federal government and state government, because some people will have you believe that it's a state's issue. That is the biggest crock of shit that I've ever heard. I'm sorry. It just pisses me off because the state government, it's not like these people that say it wasn't a federal issue, it's a state's issue. Why should state government be allowed to tell a woman what she can do when the federal government can't? And look what's happening now that we put it in the hands of the states. We have Texas, which is horrible. And Florida, yes, Mr. DeSantis, oh, anyway. And it's going to spread. It's going to spread if it's allowed to go unchecked, it's going to spread. So we have to get people in there that will do the right things. The thing that disappoints me is I like I said, I went online this morning and listened to the hearing from 2 days ago, and then I went and Googled. I said, when was the last time that the House of Representatives held a hearing on women's rights, on abortion rights? And it was, I think, 2020 or 2021. So what's wrong with our House of Representatives? Why were they not fighting harder for us? They're afraid. They're afraid, but I don't care if they're afraid. We need people there that will stand up and do the right thing, and I will do that. I can't wait to make my big mouth heard there. So anyway, it's urgent. I mean, when you listen to the stories about what women are going through, we know that it's urgent. We don't have time to waste. So I think one of the quotes that I wrote down is that forced pregnancy is never okay, and that making a woman a walking coffin is never okay. And that's kind of sad to even hear those words come out of my mouth, but that's what they're doing now. They're taking women who have pregnancies that are not viable and telling them that they cannot have the care that they need. It's insane and it's wrong. One thing I do not support is symbolic legislation. So when Dobbs came down, we saw the House of Representatives put together a bill very quickly. And because the House was still under the rule of Nancy Pelosi, they were able to get a 50% vote on it. But all the legislation, although I would love to see this in place, said there were absolutely no restrictions. A woman can have an abortion anytime she wants. And like somebody said, I don't know if it was Wendy or Barb here, women are not getting late-term abortions by choice. They're only doing that if they're told that their life is in danger. So that's the truth of the matter. I'm a mother of 5, so I've had a number of pregnancies, and thank God, mine were fine. I had no real problems. It was after they were born that I had problems. But my pregnancies were all good. But even with good pregnancies, the first trimester is like the hardest. You know, you feel horrible. The second, well, in general, or at least this is what I found, the second is so-so, and then, the third might get a little bit tough. But people are, if they're going to have an abortion, they're not gonna carry a child for months on end and then just decide one day, yeah, I don't think so. What do you have to say?
I'll just go.
No, that's good.
We have to disabuse people's notion that women are lazy and are having abortions because they didn't get birth control, or they didn't care,
Right.
or they're having indiscriminate, so what if they're having indiscriminate
Yes.
sex? But anyway, they're having sex and they didn't take the precautions. And so they're gonna go off and have an abortion. What people don't seem to realize is abortions cost money.
Right.
And not everybody has that money, so it's not used as a form of birth control.
I agree 100%. It's, people on the other side will tell you that people are using it as a form of birth control, and that's just nonsense. People wouldn't do that. It doesn't make any sense.
And birth control doesn't always work.
That is also true. That is also true. It doesn't always work.
Whatever.
Right.
Always work.
And there are people in relationships where there is trouble in paradise, where you've got an abusive boyfriend or husband who doesn't take no for an answer. There are all kinds of reasons why people end up with a pregnancy that's unwanted, and they should have the right to terminate it if it's their choice. And if you are somebody who doesn't believe in abortion, don't have one.
How many times has a right been taken away from somebody? They took a right away from us.
Yeah, that usually doesn't happen. No.
It's always about the damn control.
Yes. Yes, and it doesn't,
I refuse to call
it's bigger than Roe because it's going to affect other things,
I
you know?
refuse to call that other side pro-life because they're not about
No.
life. It's totally anti-abortion.
Anti-choice, and
We
yeah,
need to refer to it that way. It's not
Okay.
pro-life. Sorry.
I'm almost done.
Big mouth again. I had an abortion after having my first child because my husband came back from Vietnam and he was addicted to drugs, beat the shit out of me. And I had a choice. I am leaving him. I had no skills. I was 18, 19 years old. I'm pregnant. I have a 1-year-old. What do I do? Roe v. Wade had just passed, and I had an abortion, much to the chagrin of my very Roman Catholic family. But my choice was, I have more responsibility to the life that I have here than to the life that wasn't here.
I agree, 100%.
And unfortunately, I had an abortion. Most people are ashamed of it. They hide it. And more of us, they estimate 1 in 4 women in their lifetime will have an abortion. We don't hear from these women.
Because it's stigmatized and they're not comfortable to speak up. But yeah, we have to be their advocates, we have to be advocates for other people so that it doesn't continue that way. You know what, there's going to be a question and answer part at the end. Unless you
This actually refers to your comment on forced pregnancy. I'd just like to read something.
Okay.
In 1998, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court became the first international instrument to expressly list forced pregnancy as a crime against humanity and a war crime.
Okay.
So
Well,
maybe it's time for
Texas
somebody
and
that
Florida to be brought up on charges.
charging, for example,
Yeah.
the governor of Texas and the
That's a
governor
good
of
idea.
like that.
with crime against humanity.
I agree with you. All right. I'm going to try to wrap up because I'm taking too long and we have other people that are going to provide you with some other wonderful information. So what I started saying before, symbolic bills like the one that the House put together are useless because even though you only need 50% in the House, you need 60%, 60 out of 100 votes in the Senate, and if you don't pass legislation through that's going to get voted up in the Senate, you're wasting your time. So that's what the last time that the House even talked about this, they wasted their time. So what we need is legislation that will get passed. That may mean that you need to do a little bit of compromising, but I'll tell you what compromises I would be okay with. If we say that abortion has no restrictions up until the point of viability, which is what Roe did, right? And that beyond that point, it has to have, your doctor has to say that it's medically necessary. That is also, I think, what Roe did.
Yes.
But it should never say that your government can decide for you. So those are the only restrictions that I would allow on a bill that will go through. But I think we can get that because we already know that in the House, when Dobbs came down, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski put together a bill very similar to what I just described. It never got heard on the Senate floor. It got tabled, but it needs to get resurrected. And hopefully as a result of the hearings that happened this week, it will. And hopefully they'll get it passed in the Senate with the 60 votes that they need, because Lisa and Susan are very influential senators. And I hope that they can bring along some of their Republican colleagues. And also, what you see in more and more places is that states are putting it on the ballot, and it's passing more. It's becoming more obvious that the people of this country agree that it's a right that we should have returned to us. So I think that it will be, but we need to keep up the pressure. We need to keep on letting people know that this is what we want. The ways that you can help, besides coming to rallies like this, is sharing information like this with others. Donating to Planned Parenthood and other organizations that now are helping women from states like Texas to come here to New Jersey for the abortion care that they need and can't get where they are. But one thing you do have to remember is, although it's legal in the state of New Jersey, we're like 1 or 2 votes away from it being illegal. So we can't sit on our laurels and believe that we're safe, we don't need to do anything. We do still need to get it passed at the federal level. And the other thing is that we have maternity deserts in different places in our district where you cannot get the care that you need. So we have work to do, and I would like to be part of getting that work done. So thank you for listening. I'm sorry if I took too long. I'm going to sit down now.